the 70s. So it just took a very long time for us to find the right people to put it together. And what happened was, one of the executive producers, a fellow named Dan Farah, who is now doing several of these features on TV and movies, has a lot of experience with this, brought it to a group called Sonar Entertainment out of Britain. And they are a financier, and they actually said, what we do is we finance a product, as they call your masterpiece, and then we find the right venue for it, and we find actors, and we find directors, and we find all the pieces, and we put them together. So we negotiated an agreement, and then they, right at the end, they said, we think this needs to be a TV show, because we think that it's too big to be movies, and the world is so large that if we really want to do the right thing with it, we should spread it out and make it a TV series that runs for, you know, like 30 years. Okay, all right, I made that up. They didn't say that. So anyway, we basically said, yeah, all right, well, TV is fine with us, and that's when we started getting lucky, because that's when Jon Favreau came on board as our executive director. That's when we found our writers, Al Goff and Miles Millar, who had done one of the Spider-Man movies. They'd done Smallville. They had a lot of experience in this business. And when I met these guys for the first time, it's one of those things when you talk to somebody in 5 minutes, you know you're going to like these people, and you know that you're going to trust them, and you know they're the ones that are going to do the job. And that's what I felt about them right away. And they, in fact, they've done that, so that's very encouraging. And then after that, we found our actors, all of our different actors, and everything started to come together. And of course, now it's finally happened, and it's done. And it'll be out in January. And I've said this, I don't know how many times. I hope I don't have to say it too many more times, but it's really good.
You've seen all 10 episodes, right?
I've seen all the episodes. I've followed, worked with the writers from front to back on all the scripts. I learned a lesson when I was working on Phantom Menace with George Lucas. He was very good about saying, if you want to change something, change it. You know, he said, just be respectful of the story. And I said, so you're going to let me write some new material? He says, absolutely. I would like you to write some more things about Anakin Skywalker. So I did, and I asked about changing dialogue, and he said, sure, go ahead. And basically, he let me recreate the story in a way that worked better for the book. I came away from that feeling like it was one of the easiest things I've ever done, because I had so much latitude. He was so good about allowing that to happen. And I kept it respectful to his screenplay and to the movie, I think. And he never changed anything. He accepted it the way it was, and I thought, that's what I need to tell my writers for the TV series. If you want to change things, you should. You have to. It's a different medium. You know, be inventive. Come up with something interesting and different. Make it a different experience for the readers.
Within reason.
Within reason, yeah. You know, I said no. You know, they weren't saying, "Oh, well, we're going to go out there and rewrite the whole thing." They were saying, you know, we know certain things like interior monologue can't happen in movies. You can't look inside somebody's head and see what they're thinking or how they're responding to something. It all has to happen through physical action and through dialogue. So it necessarily requires a few new characters, some changes in the way things come together. And because of the way that the pacing works, you have to space it differently so things happen in different orders, things like that. But you know, the bones of the story, the main characters, and the heart of the story, which those of you who have read it, which I expect is almost everyone, know. Yeah, thank you. You know what the story is, and you're gonna say, well, wait a second. They got married and went off and were happy for the rest of their lives. I don't remember that in the book. Well, no. That's not going to happen. So it's going to be the story that you know, and not one that somebody made up along the way.
Okay, and yeah, let's clap for that. So, how many of you guys, raise your hands, have you seen the teaser trailer from San Diego? Not all of you. That's cool.
That's
I like
good
that,
for you.
because we're going to show it right now.
Is he here?
Manu Bennett, please
Yes,
enter. And he's playing Allanon. Incognito, of course.
I can take that off now. For Allanon.
We found out that Manu was coming here, about a week ago, unexpectedly, because I had hoped he was coming all along, but once we found out he was coming, of course I called him up and said, you have to come sit up with us on this panel, because Allanon sort of defines this entire series at the beginning of the book, and particularly Elfstones, and nobody can speak to it better than the person who has inhabited that character as well as Manu has.
Thank you, Terry. I mean, look, thank you guys. I see my career as being really blessed. Bouncing from one character to another with some really wonderful producers and studios and networks. Starting off with working with stars as Crixus on Spartacus was just an amazing character. Groundbreaking television. Spartacus was really groundbreaking, and then Peter Jackson called, and I got to be involved in The Hobbit. Playing Arzo, which was a great character. And then next thing, Arrow called, and I got to play Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. This guy, and everything's been a natural progression. And now to be sitting beside one of the most prolific fantasy writers in the world, Terry's sold 50 million copies of these books, and to be, given the mantle of Allanon on this series is really a blessing. And for me, it's like I've played all of these, dark characters, as an indigenous Maori actor, it's amazing to get the opportunity to play a wise druid who's trying to help some young people in this world. It's a great honor, and I really take it with so much gratitude. Terry, thank you.
Okay, now I have to tell you a story here. First, I want to tell you that I was there when he was doing filming in New Zealand and kind of in the beginning of things. And I watched him play this character, and I thought, my God, you cannot look away from him when he's up there. He's just, he dominates. He has a magnetic personality. It comes through in his interpretation of the character. It's just fabulous. But the story I want to tell you is that when I first met Manu, he came down. We were having lunch out in the field, out where they were shooting, and he comes down, and he's in this kind of garb, this heavy garb, and he's got this look about him. His hair is shaved all the way back, except for up here, and he's got these ritual scarring all over his neck and face, and I thought, wow, where did they find him? I thought that was what he looked like. No kidding. And then we said hello and everything, and I sort of, then I realized, of course, well, that's not what he looks like. But the next time I saw him at San Diego Comic-Con in San Diego, I didn't even know him. I stood like 6 feet away from him, and I was looking at him.
I'd shaved my head.
He was totally different.
Yeah, that one threw you. It threw everybody. As a matter of fact, I went into Katie Cassidy as well from Arrow, and she turned around and she went, and she went, Manu? That was funny because, and you know how that happened? It was because the haircut that they gave me to play Allanon, which Terry is saying, it was basically when I arrived, and Terry will attest to this, that making the television series for a project like this, the same with Arrow, is that you have to create new material, you have to create new information for the viewer, and at first they brought a big wig in, and so a druid is meant to be, Allanon's meant to be 7 foot tall with this long wig, long hair, so they brought me this long wig and they put it on. And then, the producers came in and they had a big discussion, and then obviously phone calls went on, and they came back and they said, we're shaving your head. down the sides, and we're going to make it quite a different haircut to what the traditional Allanon was. And this is the way in which the television show is taking artistic license. The same was done with Deathstroke on Arrow. The story in that, which is just nothing like the DC comic book world, but the new version, lends from the old, and you get things that will surprise the audience. So in this way, the Allanon look was this shaved head and this kind of like, military kind of buzz cut with the ruins down the side. Now, when the Comic-Con was coming up in San Diego, this buzz cut that I had on the top had started to grow out like one of those trolls. and it was all shaved on the side, so I couldn't balance it out. So I had this great idea that I was going to give myself a flat top, shave it back down with these clippers by myself. So I got these clippers out, and I'm in the bathroom, and I went to shave the top of it, and I hit right there, and I shaved a big chunk out of the front. And I tried to do a Bobby Brown thing and sort of have this, but it didn't work, and so I blissfully just went, that's it. I shaved the whole thing off, and I was in shock, because 2 weeks later I was appearing with these guys in Comic-Con. But that was the story, and yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I liked about the fact is he doesn't look like the traditional Allanon or the traditional Druid or whatever. He looks entirely different, but what matters is that the Allanon, the character, has to dominate the scenes he's in. He has to be the one you look to right away. It has to be apparent that he can control the action and what's going on with the other characters. And that's something that Manu was able to do with no trouble at all in every scene that I looked at, and I've seen them all. So that's what I was looking for in my character. I wanted the characters to inhabit the characters as I saw them in the book and appear to be the way they should be, not by looks, but by behavior and by the way in which they characterize themselves. And I thought they all did a great job of that. And I know you do too.
Thanks, Terry.
I'm sorry, I'm going to put him on the spot here. Tell us the story of your audition.
Oh, that was interesting.
One of my favorites here.
Well, it's a funny thing. I just moved to LA and from New Zealand. I'd done Arrow, and then I flew home to New Zealand, and then I moved all of my possessions from Canada down to Los Angeles. And I thought, I'm going to try to hit the Hollywood machine, right? And so the first audition I had was for Shannara, and I literally got it. The way this particular deal worked, I'll just give you an insight to what actors have to prepare very quickly for. Basically, they rang me and they said, look, these guys from Shannara want to screen test you, but we're going to try to skip all the audition phases and just try to get you what's called a deal. A test deal, which means you go in there and you audition and you sign a contract, and if you get it, that's it, you're done. You're going to get it. And I said, okay, where's this shooting? And they said, New Zealand. I was like, I came to America to try to get into that, and I'm getting sent home. It was a boomerang job. And I was literally just, I was going, wow, I just moved all of my gear down here and everything like this. But I sort of started looking at the material online about Allanon, and I just saw these images of this incredible druid, and I automatically thought of Gandalf and these powerful men that have led these kind of fantasy genres. And then a friend of mine rang me and said, and I was saying, look, I'll go for this audition for Shannara. And he said, oh man, I read that when I was a kid. Which character? And I said, Allanon. He said, dude, Allanon is like this. I'm not going to say the word, but he's dark, man. He's heavy, but he's like a good guy. It's like all these, and I went, wow, that's the type of characters I love to play, So I got ready the next morning, and I thought I should dress up like a druid. And so I had this really heavy coat with a hood and all this sort of stuff on, and I sort of tied it up and put it on, and it was raining in the morning. I thought, oh, perfect, it wasn't that hot LA weather. And I drove over to this particular place where the audition was happening, and the clouds broke and the sun came down, and it started getting really hot in there. And I got up there, and it was not Miles, it was...
Oh, Al.
It was Al. Al, one of the producers, was sitting there with a couple of women, and he said, oh, Manu, thanks for coming in on short notice, and I was like, I'm ready for this. And I started doing this audition, and I started to just sweat profusely. And I remember just looking at the girl that was sitting next to Al, and she just had this look on her face. And as an actor, you're trying to not look at anybody and just stay in the moment, but I was thinking, like, she's hating this. she doesn't like my performance at all. But I stayed in there, and I just tried to do what I think is the best thing to do, and that's to really just be in the emotions of the character and lock in. And you know, it sort of finished, and Al was he didn't really say much. He said, "Thank you, Manu," and I walked out. And I walked downstairs, and I rang up my manager, and I said, "Well, forget about that one. I think that one's gone." But I jumped on a plane that night to go to New York for the New York Comic Con. And as I landed, I got a phone call from my manager, and she said, "Manu, what are you talking about?" They said they loved you and they're offering you the role. And I had this really pensive moment, because I just moved to America and I thought that I was making this huge leap, and then all of a sudden I'm going home to New Zealand. But then it all started to make sense. It all started to make sense. See, my heart and my soul and my groundedness as a Maori comes from New Zealand. And when I was there playing Crixus, and when I was there playing Azog, I used that tangata whenua, that place that I come from, this land, in my performance. And when I got back and I started to shoot Shannara, I met all the people that I worked with on Spartacus are in the crew. All the people that I worked with on The Hobbit are in the crew. And this was the smartest choice about shooting Shannara in New Zealand. It's because the practitioners that there have made the best fantasy genre films and television shows literally that have ever come out. So all of that quality that you know from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, those guys are working on Shannara. So what you envisage, it can be done. And it can be done in New Zealand, and I'm really proud of that.
Also, can I say, how cool is it that Gimli the dwarf is going to be an Elven King? And he turns in a great performance, by the way. We'll start
Jonathan Rhys Davies really is electric in this. He really took this King Eventide role, and just, I mean, acting with him was, you know, I mean, there's some great actors that I've worked with, including Lucy Lawless on Spartacus. Honestly, Lucy Lawless is just amazing as an actress. You know, really, really great energy. These great actors you walk against, you can see the energy that they're going to play with you. You know, and they open up the game. You know, and Jonathan Rhys Davies was just phenomenal.
I'm sad we don't have him here, because in San Diego, about 3/4 of the way through our panel, unbidden, he was sitting next to me where Shawn is here on the end. We were sort of, the old guys were shut to the end. And he, all of a sudden, he started talking about the importance of books. He said, a book can save a child's life. Books are what feed our souls. Books, and he goes on, and everybody's looking over there. And I thought, the book industry needs to hire him right now. It was the most amazing, spontaneous endorsement I've ever heard. And as a book guy, I really appreciated that.
Daddy?
Now we'll start taking questions now. The mic is right up here in front. Anybody have any questions for the gentleman here? More than welcome to come up. Break that ice.
Sure.
Hey, kids. Hello.
What's going on, Iron Man?
Hi, darling.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. My name's Matt.
Hi.
First of all, I'm a huge fan of the Shannara series. I've loved the books since I was a kid. They had a great impact on my life, and I'm super excited for this TV series. I guess you've seen what the show is already, and you seem super excited about it, and that's got me excited and tons of fans excited. I want to know, you know, I love the second book, I love the Elfstones. What are our prospects then, if this does well, of seeing the Sword of Shannara or the Wish Song become a TV series or movies and things like that? Is that a possibility? Is that something we could see as well, if this does well?
I don't think there's any doubt.
Awesome.
All of you guys, I'm going to give you marching orders right now. All of you need to go leave this panel and chat about it, talk about it. In January, watch it and tell your friends and your family, and we'll make this a big hit, and then we'll get our season 2.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm a big fan of both
you guys. I was also wondering, we saw in the trailers how some of our world remains in the trailer. I'm a big fan of Word in the Void trilogy, Running with the Demon. Are we going to possibly see some of that in the series, since we saw hints of that in the scenery there?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because when we're working on these sets, you know, well, obviously, you know, the CGI guys are going to add in those elements, but you know, there's the relics of the past human era are always evident, and some of the brilliant, you know, some of the brilliant ideas that came into some of the scripts. You know, there's elf hunters that drop into, you know, I mean, I can't give it away, but there's these moments that you know, they're walking through this, you know, what you'd imagine in a fantasy forest scenario, and then suddenly they come across a massive ship, or you know, or as you saw, like the Space Needle from Seattle sideways in a swamp, and these incredible CGI images are just poignant throughout each episode.
Yes, it's very dramatic.
Yes.
And you know, I would add to that that if you were alive when the book was written, you would know that the original books did not make a big deal out of the fact that this was our world, because I really didn't decide until about halfway through the series that this was going to be our world. I was always toying around with that, but never really admitted to it. When I made that decision, this caught the eye of the MTV people, and they said, we want to emphasize this. We want to make it clear that it's this world. And so they went out of their way to give those images a prominent place in the storyline, and I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, it's like that brilliant ending of Planet of the Apes, when you find, you know, the Statue of Liberty lying on the sideways on the beach. You know, there's just that moment happens many a time in the Shannara series, you know. But you know, it's a major homage as well to the idea that television is now bringing this incredible technology to the screen, which was never available on television, you know, up until now. I mean, Peter Jackson was saying 10 years ago that it was impossible to make Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit until the technology had caught up. Well, now that they're actually using that at a television level is very exciting. You know, it's, you know, and you can see by the trailer that the same look is there as those movies that cost hundreds of millions.
Answer the question.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I'm really terrified, so I'll keep this short. So my name actually is Shannara. And
Oh, come up here, come up here. That's Shannara on stage.
correctly. I just always wanted to know where you came up with the name, because it's very, I mean, I've never met another person with my name in my life, so I've just always wanted to know where the idea for that name came from.
Well, I can answer half this question. The name, the part I can't answer is where it came from, because I made it up. And I can no longer remember, because you can tell, I don't remember much anymore, that I don't know how I came by the name. I think I was probably fiddling around with names, and that one came up finally. But I can tell you that time has caught up with you, and your name indeed is now Shannara. For years and years, years, I said, you know, it's Shannara, it's Shannara, phonics. You divide the end, Shannara. That's it. Nobody pronounced it that way. Everybody says Shannara. And when I went to the studios for the first time to talk about the names, they're all pronouncing it Shannara. And I said, wait a minute, that's not how you pronounce it. It's Shannara. And they said, who says it that way? And I said, well, I do. And they said, well, your fans don't. It's Shannara.
So your name is safe.
I just find it incredible. I find it incredible that here at this launch, you know, a girl named Shannara, or Shannara, Shannara has actually come on the stage and met the man who invented her name. That's an incredible journey. Yeah, how's that?
You have awesome parents.
Yeah.
You know, for years, I would go to book signings, and people would bring their daughters in who were named after characters in the book, and Shannara was one of them. Did anybody name them Shannara? No. They were all named Shannara. So right away I'd have to be very careful to stop talking about Shannara until they were out of hearing distance anyway, because it was wrong. But now it's okay, you know? It's like, well, I don't know what it's like, because that would sound bad. But at any rate, it's okay now to be a Shannara.
All right, next question.
Yes.
They call me Manu here because if they read my name, you know, Americans will say Manu, and so they go Manu, but it's Manu. So I know what you feel like, Shannara.
How big was that tree?
How big was the tree?
The tree? Look up.
Look up.
It's bigger than that.
The part that you could see, which was the trunk and the beginning part, was bigger than this.
When we walked into the studio was huge. It's giant, yeah. And the branches hadn't even started where the base was. If you look on the actual trailer, there's an image of the Elcrys growing above the rest of the forest, and it's massive. It's giant.
Yeah, you know, I think if you go on the website, if you go on terrybrooks.net, we have a picture of me standing next to the tree. And I am not very big, but I'm really tiny next to that tree. Okay.
You know the tree from Avatar?
Yeah.
That looks like the sapling.
Hi, Manu. We really loved you in Spartacus, and we just want you to flex for everybody.
Hey, look, it's Shannara. I'm wearing a big cloak.
Yeah, he doesn't get to show off as much there. We'll strip him down for the next season, I
Mr. Bennett, what does it feel like to be a good guy now?
Come on the stairs. Come on the stairs.
Well, he doesn't know.
What's your name?
Spencer.
Nice to meet you, Spencer. You know what? Once upon a time, I was your size. I was watching my first movies, and I watched Indiana Jones, and I watched all these wonderful characters. And then when I grew up and I became an actor, you know, my first films were like with the WWE, you know, the wrestlers. You know John Cena? I did a movie with him, and then suddenly everyone thought I was a tough guy, so they cast me in another movie with him. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, they put me in a movie with him, and then they went, oh, well, let's put him in more tough guy roles. So they put me as Crixus, the gladiator in Spartacus, and then Azog, the giant orc, and I played all of these big physical, angry characters, and then, you know, somehow in the evolution of my roles, I got this role as Allanon, who's a good guy, you know, and I'm really thankful for it, because you know what, I don't always want to play angry roles and things like that. As an actor, you're lucky to get those roles, but I tell you what, storytelling's all about touching somebody here, and I'm glad I can play the good guy for once. Yeah. Thanks.
We saw his inner goodness.
I had a question for you, Terry. What was it always? Was it your idea or the producer's idea to do Elfstones?
It was my
before
idea.
anything else.
Yeah, that was my idea. I always thought that Elfstones was the right movie, or either right movie or TV show, but the right visual to start with. And there's several reasons for that that are obvious if you stop and think about it. There are no lead female characters in Sword, just male characters. That's bad. That's a bad, for visual and for a demographic, which the movie people and the TV people worry about a lot, is if you want to draw in female viewers, you should probably have a few female characters too. It's got a great love story, a little quirky and strange, but it's there. And it's got a dynamite ending. And I thought basically that it would lend itself better to an adaptation than Sword would. And also I thought that we've already seen Lord of the Rings, and we didn't need to have Sword on top of that. So I wanted to start with Elfstones. And fortunately for me, I walked into the first meeting with the writers and said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I want to start with Elfstones. And they said, yeah, so do we. So these things kind of work out.
That's how easy it can be in Hollywood.
Okay, Terry, I've got a question for you. I've wondered this for a very long time. Is Two Bears the king of the Silver River?
Two bears. Two bears.
I don't think so.
It's a great fan theory, though.
That's an idea. That's like the same people that want to know if Steve Jans is Garrett Jacks. No, we'll make that very clear shortly.
Hi Terry, I'm Andrew. I'm a huge fan. I've read all your books since I was a teenager. Really grateful that you came to Utah, so thank you very much. And Manu, huge fan as well of Azog the Defiler, so really glad that you could make it here as well. Thank you. My question is for Terry. Could you tell us a little bit about how you felt when you realized that, or when the offer was made that your baby, that your series was going to be a TV show that could potentially be seen by millions of people?
Well, I think that you have to understand it's a progression, because I've had these meetings before where somebody told me this was going to be the best movie of all time, this was going to be the greatest thing that's in sliced bread, you're going to be so famous, we love you, we love your work, and then you never heard from them again. So my first reaction to that kind of thing is suspicion, followed by doubt, followed by how much. I mean, I got fairly jaded about the whole process after a while. I mean, it's been 30 years. So I think that really I didn't believe it until fully believe it, fully buy into it, because I wasn't intricately involved in the process. I didn't go to the networks to talk to each of them about what they were going to do. I wasn't there for the casting. I only went with the writers once or twice, and that was it. But when I went to New Zealand and I saw how big the production was, and I saw how incredible the sets were, I thought, this is more than 30 guys with a handheld camera by quite a bit. When you see the drone cameras flying overhead, and when you meet people like Manu and Poppy and Ivana and Will, Austin Butler, and see how good they are at what they're doing, then you think, by golly, I think maybe they've got something going here. And that's when I think I realized what it meant, and that it might actually find a big audience.
Well, couldn't be more excited. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Amy. I'd like to thank Terry for introducing me to the world of epic fantasy. When I was in 7th grade, a friend handed me Elfstones of Shannara, and I never looked back, and it's been a great journey. And I was also very grateful when I heard the casting choice for Manu, because as soon as I heard that, I was like, that's perfect. It is perfect. And I have a question for Manu. Did they let you use your New Zealand accent in the TV series, or did you have to change it to something else?
Oh, you know what? I hope I'm blessed with the Shawn Connery. Because I've got a terrible American accent. Hi guys. Hello. I'm an American. I can't get it from here. I'm Manu, not Manu. Look, full respect to the American accent, love it, but I just can't quite produce it. You know, luckily in this scenario, they said, Manu, just use your own voice. You know, I think I know my voice, and my emotions know my voice. So when I link them together, they're truthful. I'm not trying to build something that's not me. So I think the most important thing about Allanon, especially, is the gravitas of the truth, because he has to carry a lot of that around with him in this series.
You know, the funny thing is, we've got Ivana from Spain, we've got Poppy from Great Britain, we've got John Rhys Davies from, where's he from?
Originally the UK, but he's in New Zealand, so he
Somewhere
probably
in
has
the
some
UK.
accent.
But he's Welsh, that's right, he's Welsh. And then Will, who's, you know, from California. But when they talk, you don't notice the accents. You notice it a little bit, but it doesn't seem wrong. And to some extent, it's because the whole Shannara saga takes place in a multicultural, multinational world. And so you're supposed to have people with different accents, different skin colors, and different backgrounds, and all the rest in order for it to work. And that's what we've been striving to achieve. And to me, this just the actor choices reinforces this.
And I think that's the universal signal as well. I think that a lot of the popular television these days is talking about that amalgamation, because that's the big question in the world right now, right?
Right, it is.
You know, so when you've got everybody's energy, and I remember on Spartacus was non-denominational at all, you know, it was so spread out, and yet it was the movie, the story from 74 BC, you know. Yeah. But, you know, we're coming around to that same sort of scenario in the world today, and I think it's great that we're addressing that multicultural layer out.
All right, we have 5 minutes.
First off, Manu, I loved you as Deathstroke. My 3-year-old son loves you as Deathstroke, goes around the house. Great. My second son, Bennett, he loves you as well. He doesn't know yet he loves you.
His name's Bennett?
Yeah, his name's Bennett. My husband thought it was Pride and Prejudice, but I don't think he thought of Manu Bennett. So, my question is actually for Terry. I wanted to know what advice you have for people who are writing. My sister and I both write. And we like to read a bunch, and my mom loves your books, so I wanted to know what advice you would have for writers.
Yeah, no, I always try to pare this down, because when you're talking about advice, you can go on forever. So I'll just say that I think it's extremely important that you love what you're doing. And if you're writing something that bores you or doesn't interest you, go do something else, you know, or go write something else at least. Because this is something that it's hard enough as it is, but if you don't really love the hard parts of it, and you're not really attracted to it, then you're probably not going to be successful with it. And the other part of the equation is you have to be patient with yourself. It takes a long time to get your craft down to where you're going to have something that's really good. And it might never happen, but in the meantime, have fun.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dawn. First, I'd like to say, Terry, thank you so much for putting Shannara out there in the world for all of us. Huge fan of epic fantasy, so thank you. Manu, I just want to say thank you. You are a beautiful soul, and thank you for coming and sharing yourself with us. My question is actually for you. I teach middle school, and I went to your panel yesterday, and you spoke some about some of the hardships you've been through in your life and the anger. As you know, we tend to have a huge bullying problem in middle school ages especially. What advice do you have for kids and for teachers in order to help kids to work through that and through the anger that tends to be behind the bullying?
Well, to be honest, I attended a Maori boys boarding school in New Zealand, and that's when I came across some of the heaviest bullying that I confronted. But it was at a time where the culture itself was going through a massive shift between being its traditional Maori culture and a culture that was now breaking into the modern world, and there was conflict just in the psyche of being Maori. And it's always so important to hear everybody's story. You know, a guy is a bully because there's a story behind it. You know, a guy is a victim because there's a story behind it. And the more that you hear people's stories, the more I think you're enabled to not judge people on surface level and to understand them more deeply. Somebody asked me yesterday what I based Crixus on, and the Spartacus relationship. And I spoke the story. My mother was killed at 15 when I was 15 years old, and I was thrown out of the car window, and that's how I got my scars. People often think they're makeup, but they're not. One was the glass going through the side window, and the other one was the road when I landed on the ground. And the police officer who I spoke to take reports later on, you know, said to me that he couldn't believe he'd been to many a car accident, and the distance that I'd been thrown from the car, he said I shouldn't have survived it, but somehow I did. When I woke up from intensive care, I was in intensive care for 2 weeks. When I woke up in the hospital, the person next to my hospital bed was my worst enemy from high school, a guy I loathed, and he loathed me back. He had one of these mullet haircuts. And I used to put gel in my hair and, you know, be fashionable. I did break dancing, and this guy drove around in this red, noisy car. We were like opposites in terms of, you know, just what we were representing at that time. But I then found out, and I hadn't known this about him, and we used to be at each other at the bus stop all the time. He wrote, Bennett is the N-word on the blackboard in class, and I walked in and people were laughing. We had some very, very harsh kind of confrontations as school kids, you know. I mean, we think it's, you know, probably go back, it wasn't that big, but it seemed big at the time. Now, he was beside my bed, and I was lost for words. We then became best mates. I found out that his mother had died when he was younger. So suddenly the two of us had this bond through adversity. And when I played up against Andy Whitfield in Spartacus, I thought I was the two of us at the bus stop, and I was trying to relive that actual relationship that came together. You know, I would never have thought that guy and I could be friends until I listened to his story, until he understood my story as well. So I think, you know, bullying starts with making people face each other, you know, and I think schools are starting interventions like that, where they're trying to get the bigger boys to integrate with the kids that aren't in that select group either, so that they talk to each other, you know. That's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Great question.
Thank you again, Terry, for the great honor to be part of your amazing book trilogy, you know, your amazing book series. You know, I hope for the fans out there of my past work, or the fans of Shannara who've never seen my work, I hope I can bring a great Allanon. I know the other cast members aren't here, but they're all fantastic. And you're going to enjoy the show when it comes to screen.